Okay, great. Thanks, Rebecca. Welcome everybody to the Sandburg Library Help Me Cite It Right workshop. My name is Marla Turgeon. I'm your Sandburg librarian, and then Rebecca Eaton is, she was just speaking to you. She is going to help us today, and she's going to be our chat monitor and take care of all the good stuff for us. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off so we can just pay attention to the PowerPoint. Okay, so let's get started with what is plagiarism. Change that slide. Okay, so here's the Oxford English Dictionary definition, okay? But in other words, it's just uncredited use, both intentional and unintentional, of somebody else's words or ideas, okay? So is it plagiarism if I borrow someone's ideas or if I use their actual words? Well, the answer is both. You need to clearly quote and cite when you use someone else's words, and you need to do the same minus those quotes when you use their ideas. Excuse me. I want you to understand that adding to the world of scholarship is about building on others' previous work, and you need to respect that work, okay, by not only citing their words, but also their ideas. You can think of it this way. If a fact or an idea that you bring up in your paper turns out to be inaccurate, a citation can either help you make your argument or, at the very least, show your intent. So what does plagiarism look like? Well, first, this includes buying papers, finding papers on the internet, or using a friend's work. The college uses a plagiarism detection service called Turn It In. And this service is going to find out if you've copied someone else's work, okay? When you've been caught plagiarizing, it can result in a failure for the assignment or the course and disciplinary action from the college. Second, you must use in-text citations along with the complete citation on your works cited page. And yes, if you don't cite previous work that you have personally authored, it's considered self-plagiarism. And the reason for this is if you don't acknowledge that it's from your past work, the reader believes it's a new and original idea. It's not ethical, and it's considered academic fraud. If you have information from a previous paper and you'd like to reuse it, then I suggest to talk to your instructor about it. Third, you can't change a few words or the arrangement of words in someone else's work and turn it in as your own, okay? This is where learning how to paraphrase comes in. And then last, I want you to keep track of all the sources you use as you do your research and while you're writing your paper, so you don't accidentally reuse someone else's words and forget where that information came from. So now that you know what plagiarism is, let's concentrate on how not to do it by learning to cite correctly. And the first thing we'll talk about are in-text citations. Whenever you use a quotation or paraphrase information from another work in your paper, it's essential that you use in-text citations. And this is done by putting your citation in parentheses in the body of the paper. Now, MLA uses an author page number system for in-text citing. On the next few slides, I'm going to show you the basics, but I want you to remember that there's additional rules for MLA style. You'll need to go to the MLA style manual, the library's LibGuide, or the Purdue OWL for assistance. So MLA in-text citations include the last name of the author, followed by the page number enclosed in parentheses. Notice in the first example, there's not a comma between the name and the page number. MLA style likes to keep it clean looking. That's why. In the example with two authors, use an and between the author's names, and again, there's no comma. And then in the example with three or more authors, use et al. Et al is the Latin abbreviation meaning and others. And a period goes behind the al in this case. Some online sources are not going to have page numbers. In this case, simply use the author's name in parentheses. For example, if an article in one of the library's databases doesn't show a clear page number on your computer screen, then don't use it in your in-text citation. Notice how the period is inserted behind the parentheses to show how the sentence has ended too in that example. So then what are quotations and when should I use those? Quotations are the exact word or words of an author copied directly from a source. You're supposed to use quotes sparingly. Most of your paper should be in your own words. And then all quotations require a formal citation. And this includes in-text citing as well as the citation on your works cited page. Okay, so here's an example of how a quote appears when you in-text cite. The author here is Roth, it's his last name, and the page number that the quote can be found on is included in that in-text citation. If you have more than one author, then follow those rules for multiple authors that we just went over. Next one, there we go. Okay, so question time. A student writes a paper that includes the following passage. I want you to go ahead and read it along with that highlighted part that's on that screenshot there. We'll give you about 30 to 45 seconds to read this. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to go to the chat box and click it to open, okay? And Rebecca has inserted a poll there. And I want you to answer yes or no, or maybe if you consider this plagiarism. This is anonymous, so nobody's going to see your specific answer. And I have a hint. The answer is it has to do with the quotation marks. How's everybody doing? I can't see it, Rebecca. Does it look like everybody's answering okay?
Yeah, it's over in the chat. Looks like we have 7 for yes, and nobody said no or maybe.
Awesome. Oh, okay, now I'm seeing it. Sorry, I didn't have my chat open.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay, well, let's go on to the next. And, yep, the student plagiarized. Now, it's likely it was unintentional and maybe it was just a simple typing error, but anytime passages are used verbatim, they must be placed within quotation marks. Note the correct way to cite this. The question mark should have been around that entire passage. Also notice that there was not a page number present for this article, so I didn't use one in that in-text citation, okay? So thanks everybody for answering that question. Okay, so now we're going to move on to paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is a restatement in your own words of someone else's ideas that backs up your opinions. Okay, changing a few words of that original statement, or if you try to stitch together numerous phrases from different authors, it's not paraphrasing. That's still quoting the source. Okay, so what you need to do is go in and change both the words and the sentence structure without changing the meaning or the content. Okay. So it's a misconception to believe that you're relying too much on other sources. It's actually to your advantage if you're using quality resources to back up your ideas. Good paraphrasing when you do it makes the ideas of the source fit really well into your paper. Just make sure that you're not copying somebody else's ideas, but adding your perceptions as well to it. And here's some tips to help you with paraphrasing. First, you need to read and reread the section until you fully understand the meaning. Then, after you understand the meaning, try a quick rewrite. Then make sure that your version fits with the message that you want to convey. Make sure you use quotation marks around those unique terms or phrases that you may be borrowing from the source. And then last, I want you to record the source so you don't forget about it later, okay? And then always remember to use your in-text citation after the paraphrase. So here is an example of how paraphrasing looks when you in-text cite. Hunt is the author, and the page that the original idea was found on is on 65 there. When you have more than one author, I want you to follow the rules for multiple authors that we went over before. So now we got question time again. And I'm going to have you tell me if this is or isn't plagiarized again. The top passage is that original text, and then next is the student's rewrite of the text. And I'll give you about 30 to 45 seconds to read these. Okay, so what do you guys think? Was this plagiarized, yes or no? Rebecca's going to put up another poll for us. And please answer yes or no. Is it considered plagiarism? Yep, no, no. Okay, we're all done answered. Okay, let's go to the next slide and I'll show you. And you guys were all correct. It was plagiarized. As you can see, the words that the student used are crossed out in the example below. The student didn't rewrite the sentence in their own words at all. Only substituting words with synonyms is not paraphrasing. Definitely isn't. You need to rewrite that content of the sentence in your own words. And then, of course, make sure that you do an in-text citation on that area. Okay. Okay, so next we're going to go over signal phrase. It's a short phrase that introduces a quote or a paraphrase. It's a signal to your reader that an outside source is going to be used. Okay, we learned before that when using in-text citations, the citation is usually located at the end of the sentence with the author's name and page number, right? But if you refer to the author's name in a sentence, you don't have to include that author's name again as part of your in-text citation. Now, as a side note, some of you may have noticed that I use square brackets and capitalize that first word of the quotation. MLA style states that after a verb of saying in your prose, for example, writes, says, states, exclaims, and suggests, you should capitalize regardless of the case that was used in the original source, okay? Okay, so now I want to walk you guys through putting together your citation for the works cited page. I'm using an article from one of Sandburg Library's Gale databases. This is going to go pretty fast, and I'm not going to be able to tell you everything you need to know about MLA citations. There's just way too much, too many rules. But the point is to explain the process to you, okay, to get you started. So the first thing we start with is the author. The name is usually around the top of the article. In this case, and with all the Gale databases we have, the information you'll need is going to be at the top of the page. So the author here is Joanne Margaret Heinz Duzel. Now I just can't copy that name right over. MLA requires the author's name to be inverted. So it's going to be written as Heinz Duzel, comma, Joanne Margaret. And since there's only one author, then we add a period to indicate that this part's done. Okay, so the article's title comes next, and this is going to be at the top of the document also. There's two things you should know about article titles. The first thing is when you copy them into a citation, you format them by MLA rules, okay? Sometimes you might run across a title that is printed in all caps or all lowercase letters, okay? But MLA requires it to be in title case. And title case is the technical term for capitalizing the first letters of the important words. And that's shown on the first bullet in this slide. The second thing you should know about article titles is that the title should be encased in quotation marks, okay? In MLA, quotation marks indicate small works that are enclosed inside of a larger works. And this is an article that it's held inside of a journal or a magazine, okay? So after this, we close the title with a period, which goes inside that final quote, okay? So far your citation should look like this: Heinz Duzel, comma, Joanne Margaret, period, then a quotation mark, practice and motor learning, period, and a quotation mark. And of course the title is in title case, okay? So then after the article information comes the journal title, and this is where the article lives, okay, or what MLA calls the container. And in this case, the container is a journal called The Physical Educator. Now, journals get their titles in italics because they're larger works. And there's no period after this title, though, because journals don't just have titles in their sections, so use a comma here. And now here's the other things that journals have. They have volumes and issues and dates, okay? Volumes have excuse me, volumes have multiple issues. Just like how a TV show has multiple episodes within a season, volumes are like the seasons and their issues are like the episodes, okay? So this article is from volume 59, issue 2. And we note it in the citation as lowercase VOL period 59, comma, lowercase NO period, and then a 2, comma. And in case you didn't notice, I'm sorry, excuse me, NO stands for that issue number, is what that means, okay? Now, dates can be a little bit trickier. This article might just give you the year, it may give you a month in a year, or it may give you the season in the year. And whatever it supplies, the rule is to include as much of the information date as the source is giving you, okay? In this case, we can see that the issue was published in, excuse me, this issue was published in spring 2002, so that's what we include. Now, the new 9th edition of MLA style just came out this last spring, and one of the changes is for the seasons. So any season that would show up in your date should be listed in lowercase within the citation, okay? So also I want you to notice how we're still working within this section. So we're using commas throughout. When a section is complete, that's where the period goes, okay? And the exception here, of course, is after those abbreviations. But now, if there were page numbers shown in this database, we would include those at this point, depending on the paging, using either a P period used for a single page or a PP period used for multiple pages. And then a period would go at the end of those page numbers. But since there's no page numbers, we'll just use a period after the date. So this is how the citation looks at this point. So how's everybody doing? Are you guys doing okay out there? You with me? Take a slight little brain break. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go on. There we go. Okay, so at the end of the citation, then we still need to indicate the database that the article came from. I found this one in Gale Academic One file. MLA states that the database is also a container, so the name should be in italics. Okay, note that one file is one word, that's the actual brand name, so we're going to leave that as is too. And then you put a comma after that database name. So if you found an article online, like we did with this one, you need to add the URL. So, but what I want you to do, especially when in databases, I want you to look for a link called permalink or stable link or get link that's on that article page. You can see it in the upper right-hand corner there. These are links that are not going to change. Don't use that URL link that you have in your browser because it's not going to work for your instructor or yourself later on, okay? Also notice how the link is in black and it's not underlined. And you're also supposed to exclude the HTTP or HTTPS from that URL, okay? Some articles also will have what is called a digital object identifier or DOI. If that'll show up in right under all that and their information for the article underneath that stuff, that DOI would show up. So if there's one present, use it instead of that permalink, okay? And then at the end of this, add a period at the end of the section. And this is what your citation is going to look like. But there's more. MLA citations, they require a hanging indent. And that means that the first line of each citation starts at that left margin, and then the subsequent lines after that are indented. Don't just use that tab key for this either. The spacing is going to be off. Instead, give it a hanging indent using your word processing software. Okay. Also, don't forget to double space, and your works cited list needs to be in alphabetical order. Okay. Now, if you guys don't know how to do those things, feel free to ask any library staff member. We know how to do them. So let's go back. Here's some tips to prevent plagiarism. First, plan your paper and start your research early. It's going to lead to a lot less stress for you. Second, I want you to take notes and stay organized. Keep your sources together digitally or write them down somewhere. Third, when you're writing your paper, make sure you are being clear. Make sure you're transparent about what ideas are yours and what you're using from the source. And then make sure you cite it. When you're in doubt, definitely cite your sources. And then finally, the library has a product called LibGuides. And these are online guides that can help answer questions about citations and research and any other library stuff that you might need help with. Okay, Rebecca is going to put the link to our LibGuides homepage in the chat. I want you guys to go in there and bookmark it for future reference so you can find it easily. Also remember that I'm here to help with any questions you might have with your citations. I'm available most all the time. Just send me an email, or we can do a Teams meeting if you'd like me to walk you through some citations. Of course, you can always come into the library too. And I have to have my works cited page, of course. While we're here, though, I would like to point out that there's different styles of citation in the world of academic writing. I only shared information about MLA style in this workshop, so I can help you with APA too. That's the other big one that everybody uses. Just make sure you're using the citation style that your instructor is requiring, okay? You can probably find that information in your syllabus, or you would find it in the paper's directions, okay? If not there, then just ask your instructor, they'll let you know. And this is the end of the presentation. Yeah, are there any questions? I know it's a lot of information in a short amount of time, but okay, well, you can still ask some questions, but I'm going to have Rebecca take over right now, and she's going to fill you in on how to use the form so you can get your extra credit if it was offered to you. Okay, I just want to say thanks for being here today, and please feel free to reach out for any assistance you guys might need. Okay.